Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
This is Sasha Christie, and you're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, the UK's biggest paranormal network. And this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
Hello, welcome to the show. Thanks for that intro, Sasha. Okay, now a guest that I've got today is quite an amazing guest that I've been sort of looking forward to for quite a while now to be speaking to. Her name's Indigo Phoniex. Now, Indigo is a natural-born white witch. She's an international psychic trance medium with unique spirit communication, transfiguration and clairvoyance with precognitive ability, with a bloodline that could be traced back to ancient Egypt and a generation of Roman Gypsies. Her ability comes from a long ancestral line of psychics. Indigo has provided countless readings and guidance to people all over the world, including Arabian royalty and celebrities, both in the UK and abroad. She has a unique X-ray that allows her to see the root cause of problems within her clients' bodies, helping them to heal from their issues and move over obstacles, frequently resulting in them getting much needed medical treatment. Indigo channels messages directly from spirit, giving guidance to those in need, and she has often shown world events in key details. She has been involved in remote viewing and inside the Super Soldier program. Indigo has also had UFO encounters since a child and deals in all things relating to the occult, but specialising in exorcism and demonology, attachment release and crossing over earthbounds and spell casting. She has travelled to Mexico, spent time with one of the lost Mayan shamans, exchanging knowledge and practised across the cultures. Additionally, Indigo has also travelled around the Middle East and into the Sahara Desert to reconnect with her ancestry, sitting with Bedouin and Nubian village elders. So welcome to the show, Indigo Phoniex.
Thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be on the show finally.
Oh, it's fantastic to have you on.
It's a bit of a mouthful there for you.
Yeah, it was a bit. I try to get my mouth around some of those words. But it's quite an amazing set of credentials you've got there, and very interesting. I believe every one of them, because I've actually seen some of the reports, and read some of the comments and things about you, and people are very impressed with what you do. So I don't know where you'd like to start to tell us about you. How did you first, maybe go back to where you first realised that you had some sort of, I won't call them powers, what do you call them, abilities?
I was going to apologise from the start because I've got a bit of a cough, so if I'm coughing, I apologise. Okay, so, yeah, I mean, this is always, it's in my bloodline. So as you touched upon briefly, it runs in the family. So my mother was a well-known psychic. She read the cards. She was a seer. My grandmother on my Egyptian side was also a seer and a healer and what we'd call a medicine woman. And she did a lot of healing and medicine work in Cairo. It skipped my sister, and it seemed to doubly go to me. So for me, it's when people say to me, power or ability, it's normal to me. I know to other people it's not, but it's always been a part of me. But saying that I haven't always been happy with who and what I am. You know, growing up wasn't easy for me. I mean, as a young child, I didn't really understand what was really happening to me. I always was different, a bit of a weird kid, I guess.
You do hear that a lot, actually, don't you, with children when they grow up and they don't know what's quite happening to them. I've heard that several times with people on this show. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like, for me, I mean, you could say, okay, you know, it runs in your bloodline, you've grown up in a family based with psychics. I mean, the interesting thing is my mum didn't actually want me to do this as a profession. You know, you'd think with her doing what she did, she'd want me to do it, and she actually didn't. Because she knows it's quite a hard life. It's not easy and it's not glamorous by any means. I know a lot of people may look at what I do and they may think, oh, it's easy, it's glamorous, or she's in it for the fame, the fortune, things like that. That's simply not the case. It can be stressful at times, and as I said, going back to being a little girl, I didn't always know what was happening to me. I mean, from the age of, I would say, 5 upwards, I can remember vividly seeing colours on my ceilings, anything from green lights to blues to kind of faces actually on my ceiling, which was absolutely terrifying for me. And to this day, I think that's where, not my fear, but back then, as a little girl, I couldn't sleep. I didn't like the dark. I couldn't sleep. I was quite nocturnal. And I remember that I'd go running into my mum's room and I would get into bed with her and I just didn't want to sleep on my own, and she'd be asking me what's wrong. And I'd be saying, oh, there's something on my ceiling and I can see a face and I can see these things. And I remember her trying to comfort me and tell me, look, it's okay. You know, it's nothing to be scared of. They can't hurt you. And telling me, you know, this is spirit trying to communicate with you and reassuring me. But as much as she tried to reassure me, it's still quite unsettling. And then obviously through my school years, oh my God, that was terrible. I didn't stay in school for a very long time. So I wouldn't say I'm the brightest person academically. I'm dyslexic and I have dyscalculia, but I find that, I don't know if you found this with people on your show, often psychic individuals or people with extrasensory abilities, you'll find they will either have autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia. It's I don't know if you've noticed this, but it seems to go hand in hand. It's interesting. So, so school on that side wasn't easy for me, and I didn't have many friends because I was deemed as a bit of a weirdo, the freak, because a lot of weird things would happen. You know, I'd come out with strange things, and spook some of the kids out, because I could see spirit, and I thought that other people could see it, you know. And being a kid, I didn't really have much of a filter, so I'd just come out and say stuff. And, you know, that would scare people, and they'd tell their mums, and their mums would get freaked out, and they'd ring up and be like, I don't want my kid sitting next to her, and, you know.
Did the teachers ever react to stuff like that, or did they just sort of ignore it?
Well, I was bullied. I was bullied a lot. The teachers, I think they thought I was a bit of a weirdo as well. And it was interesting because I was kind of put in the bottom set, so it was deemed as the kind of, I don't know the right word, but it was the lower set. Do you know what I mean? It was, you had the different banding, so I was kind of put in the special need bracket. I get you, and which wasn't fun either.
Well, it's probably undeserved as well.
Yeah, because for me, I just kind of went into my shell, really, and I was very shy, very quiet. I kept myself to myself, and school really didn't interest me. For me, I kind of felt like, even at a very young age, I always had a sense that what we were being taught, it was pointless. I kind of knew, I had a knowing that the confines of the structure of what we're being taught, the whole kind of programmed, even at that point as a kid, you know, 14 by this time, 13, 14, or being told, you know, you've got to do your GCSEs, you've got to get a job, you've got to do this, university, college. I was like, this isn't for me. And I knew there was this thing inside of me telling me, you know, your destiny, there's a bigger world out there. And I could see spirit, I could feel spirit communicating with me and telling me, you know, this is not the place for me. So I would spend most of my time running away from school, going out in the fields and forests,
playing hooky,
spending time in nature. I'll be honest, I was a bit of a naughty child, to be fair. And as I said, I did not fit in school. I was bullied severely. I was getting kind of like knocked about physically. So for me, I just didn't like school. So yeah, I kind of just went and hang out in the forests.
But I'll tell you
I was
what,
very much like into nature.
That actually does make you stronger in the end, though, doesn't it? Because I faced a bit of bullying as well. But you do actually, that does actually make you a stronger person later on.
Oh, massively. I think it's definitely shaped me for what I am, because, again, I was quite empathic, didn't understand it at the time, but I always had a sensitivity about me for animals, for people, standing up for other people. To this day, I hate injusticeness. Is that the right word?
Yeah, definitely. I know I've seen some of that when you stood up and said, when you've seen a bit of bullying going on Facebook and silly things like that. As we, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on with the trolls and things that happen. But anyway, carry on with what you were saying. I'm sorry to.
No, it's fine. I just hate bullies.
Yeah.
I hate bullies, and I think being psychic as well, I can kind of just see through the crap. I see through the crap. I see through all the other stuff that really isn't relevant. And for me, I think over time, as I said, I built a lot of resilience to this. And Spirit has really helped me find who I am, what I am. And I think you'll find a lot of psychics, they don't have an easy life. I myself has gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, and again, I think it's all my learning lessons, so then I can go on to help other people. And for what I'm doing now in life, I have the tools that I can connect with them, because obviously I'm dealing with so many different things, anything from serious murder, crimes, domestic violence. I have all different clientele that come to me, and so for me to be able to connect with their loved ones and to be able to communicate and bring the messages over, I have to have strength, I have to have compassion, and sensitivity as well. So I think with what's happened to me in my life, it's all been my school, actually. Taking out the academic side, that wasn't for me. I feel I've learnt my lessons through learnt experience and with where Spirit has taken me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. You mentioned about murders and missing people. Were you ever involved in any police cases? Did they call you in for anything? Yeah,
I have. Again, it's not dicey grounds to speak about, but it's interesting. It's like I live a double life, because obviously half of my work I deal with, I guess, your normal 9 to 5, normal clientele. They're lovely, but they're more the kind of wanting to connect with their passed over loved ones, like grandparents, mothers, relatives, where, it's just been either through illness or age, things like that. But then I have the other sector, which I don't publicise so much for obvious reasons on Facebook, due to obviously anonymity or serious crimes that I cannot speak about. That is more, like I said, linked with kind of disappearance, murders. There may be families that are needing answers, that maybe the case has been already dealt with, the perpetrator's been found, but they're needing more answers, and they're wanting answers from the other side, from their loved one. Or there may be other individuals that are linked to a case that have come and spoken to me off the record. But I think in America it's more well known, it's more publicised, it's more accepted. In America the psychic industry is taken more seriously, and there's so much more respect there. But I think in the UK we're very backwards. I think still very much with the paranormal sides and the psychic sides. I think the TV hasn't helped, because they've always bracketed it as entertainment purposes, and we've had a lot of people, without mentioning names, making a mockery of the industry. So people have lost credibility and belief in psychics. They think that we're all cranks, we're all crazy, or it's all crap. So going back to kind of what you asked me with the police cases, unfortunately a lot of the information cannot be talked about necessarily in court. So they can't go to court and say, a psychic's told me this, and get a conviction, because it'd be... Nor can they really publicise and say, look, I'm working with a psychic. But what they can do, some police officers, detectives, they can individually go to a psychic or connect with a psychic if they know someone already, or off the record, shall we say, if they know somebody who has got a very good reputation and proven themselves, which I have, and through different testings, they can come to them with maybe a case, and show them a picture or say, look, you know, this has kind of happened, what are you picking up on? They may show an item, they may just show a photo, and then I will be then given a certain period to tune in to see what do I get, what information can I bring forwards that will tie in with the case. And again, they're very careful not to say too much, and follow the leads of what I've got. So for example, you know, with some missing cases, you know, I've been able to again locate where a person would be. They'd been looking for a woman for a long time. You know, I've said, look, you know, you need to go to this location and you'll find her. And they did. And also with murder cases and things like that.
So she was still alive.
That
particular lady, was she was still alive?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. With something like that, she was, like I said, you know, it can range from missing cases to actual murder. But as I said, a lot of the times it will never come out that it was actually a psychic that aided with the work, if that makes sense. So a body will be found or something will happen, but they will never actually really come out in the press or cannot acknowledge and say, you know, oh, Indigo Phoniex or another psychic helped me with this case. They just can't, not in this country so far. Or if it does, it will be kind of way down the line and it might be for a book. Because I think, for example, there was that Soham, was it the Soham case with the children?
Yes, yeah.
Do you remember the two girls?
Yeah, the girls, yeah, it's terrible.
And I think it was horrible. And again, kind of watching that, I remember when it happened ages ago, and I knew straight away when I was watching the TV, even at the point before they knew anything, Ian Huntley, I was like, he's done it. I just knew. I had nothing to do with that case. But I'm referencing that because I remember, I think there was a psychic who came forward, this man or something down the line and said, yeah, I think he came out and did a book or something and he said he was part of the case and helped with that. I don't know how true that is. I don't know him. Right. But as I'm saying,
was one of the first ones they interviewed, wasn't they, on the television? Because he was the caretaker. Yes. And nobody really suspected that it could be him at the time. I know, I do remember that myself.
I knew straight away, and that can be so frustrating. Again, as a psychic, I can look at different things or cases, and I just know straight away, and then it's hard because it's one thing saying, okay, I know this and the Spirit's telling me, but I have to sometimes let things play out for that information to come to light. But I have worked on some interesting cases. I'll
tell you what, while we're talking, while we just talk, sorry to interrupt you there, Indigo. You know, there's an interesting case going on at the moment about the body in the pool with a major star, a major UK star. Have you got any results for that? Don't give me the answer, but just say, do you know the answer to that, or do you think you know the answer to that? You know the case I'm talking about, don't you? The Michael Barrymore case. No.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Okay, yes, no. So, one, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I was just going to say, it's Michael Barry. No, I really don't. I just don't like watching it. I watch a lot of independent film stuff. From what I remember vaguely, so we're talking about a long time ago, right? This was Michael Barrymore, and I think a young lad or something was found in his pool, right?
Yeah. He's supposed to have been raped and all that, and there was actually a documentary last week about it, and I think the police are reopening the case. But I just wondered if you had any feelings on it. I mean, you don't have to say on air if you don't want to. I just wondered if you picked up anything up from it.
So I think at the time, weren't they, from what I can remember, they were saying it was a tragic accident or something, drugs and drink, and he happened to fall in there. Am I correct?
No, that's what they were saying. But the post-mortem showed that he'd been basically raped, a homosexual rape type of thing.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised with the showbiz industry and the kind of parties and things that go on there. So are you asking me, do I believe, was this like foul play, or was this murder?
I just wondered if you picked anything up from that. But if you haven't really seen much of the case, then maybe you've not had enough, insight into it to actually give an answer.
I remember seeing it some time ago, so, I mean, instinctively and when I remember seeing it, roughly, I felt that this isn't just an accident. I do think that more things are going to come to the surface, excuse the pun. Yes. Sorry, Yeah, I do feel like, it wasn't accidental. I do think there's a lot more that will come out.
No, it was definitely, maybe it wasn't, I don't think it was murder as such, but I think it was probably manslaughter. I don't think it was meant to be yet, but I think that things went too far and they sort of dumped the body in the pool as to cover up what had happened.
I was going to say that because I feel like, there's more to this than meets the eye, and I do feel that, something was trying to be covered up there. I do think that this lad had information that didn't want to be leaks or something. So whether he had dirt on Barrymore or there was some sort of stuff that they didn't want coming out. And I do feel like, maybe it was reckless, like whether there was like a drug overdose or there was issues and they were trying to cover it up, and then he ended up in the pool. Do you know what I mean? Like a secondary.
There was definitely cocaine apparently involved in it. So, I mean, the thing is, we are entitled to our opinions anyway. Everyone else is talking about it, so I don't see why we can't mention it on the radio. So,
yeah, I mean, to be fair.
I know probably listeners in the US and around the world may not know too much about this case. It's a UK a case really of a man named Michael Barrymore, who's a UK star, and a body was found in his pool. I think it was about 2001 or 2002, something like that. And they've just reopened the case again. So watch this space. Something, see where it goes.
Yeah. I do think a lot more dirt's going to come to light, and I do think there's going to be some stuff that Barrymore did not want coming out in relation to his relation with this person, or personal information. And I do think that it will, unless it's covered up due to money and things like that, I think he was dead or going that way before he ended up in the pool. I think the pool was a secondary thing to make it look like an accident, to cover something up there.
Yeah, I think they panicked.
I don't think it was planned.
Just make it look like
I don't think. Yeah, I think whatever got out of hand. So whether it was some weird kind of like sex party drugs, kind of like some orgy, something like that, because I feel like there was a lot going on there. Okay, but and I think you're going to find out this individual probably had a history of like being a rent boy or something, because I'm picking up again. I feel like I've got to be careful what I say here, but
be
I feel that Michael Barrymore had a seedy side, shall we say, and I think that this individual again has quite an interesting background. I think it's negligence, and I feel like they deliberately did not call an ambulance when they should have called an ambulance. And I think it had gone too far, and then they panicked and then ended up in the pool here. Whether that's going to actually be proven or not, but as I said, I do think a lot more is going to come to light. And I think it is going to go more towards the manslaughter side of things. But we'll see.
Yeah. As I say, I don't think it was murder, but I think it was just something that got out of hand, and they just tried to cover it up, basically. But anyway, we digressed a little bit there. So where were we?
Yeah, where were we?
We were kind of talking about your involvement with police cases and missing people, etc. And then I interjected and asked you silly questions. So basically,
there's no silly questions there. But yes, I have worked alongside police cases. But again, a lot of it cannot be publicised. It's something I want to get more into. Maybe I hope to go out and work in America at some point. So I can do more with the forensic side of things and work more with that, because as I said, I feel like I'm very limited and capped here. As I said, because as it is at the moment with the mediumship and the psychic world, our hands are very much tied here. You've got to be so careful with what you say and do. In America, you have a little bit more freedom, and there's more belief. I mean, that openly will use psychics.
Yeah, I mean,
here, not so much.
One thing is the freedom of the press is a little bit. I mean, I think the newspapers would probably be jumping all over you, wouldn't they? With the newspapers here, I think in America it's like a lot freer with the newspapers and everything over there. That's probably one of the things you'd have to face as well over here.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, they have more respect, I think, to the psychics. As I said here, it's still seen as a bit of a joke. That's my take anyway of what I've seen. But I think America obviously is a bigger state as well. And they just seem to be a bit more open-minded with everything. from the esoteric sides, from anything from, you know, the UFO sides, the paranormal sides. Here, it's still, again, quite backwards. It's still quite a big divide. You know, you've got your psychic mediums that very much believe in the spirit world. They believe in angels. But then you try and talk to them about aliens or demons, and you still get, oh my God, what? No, there's only love and light that exists. And then you have the UFO lot, not all of them, but then they very much believe in the UFO side, but they don't believe so much in the psychics. I've seen a bit of a divide there. I don't know if you've seen this. Like, for me, I'm free. Like, I like with everyone. I'm not into snobbery or anything like that, but there is definitely a divide, it seems.
I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, I've said it a few times. There was once upon a time when I thought of UFOs and ghosts and other types of paranormal as something completely separate. But I'm beginning to see similarities, and I can see them all joining together. I can see them connected. I don't know if you know where I'm coming from. You know, like, I think a lot of it is like, the reason I called this show Paranormal Dimensions, because I think a lot of it is dimensional. And even when you go into, outer space, it's kind of still dimensional. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. You spoke about like angels and demons and things. Are they angels and demons, or are they also aliens? You know, that's kind of where I'm going with that.
That's a very good point, and yes, I agree with all of that, because really, I feel that even with the psychic side, again, going back to what, you know, a good psychic or how we're doing what we're doing, I feel it's just a case of, you know, we're tapping into, I feel the difference between, you know, you might get a mediocre psychic, someone who reads, you know, you might have a tarot reader and a psychic and a medium, and then you might have one that's okay, but not much transpires, and then you have one that seems to be really phenomenal. You know, they're getting wild events, they're getting precognitive stuff. They're always consistently right. And for me, and people are like, well, how are they doing this? How is this happening? I believe it's because we're tapping into the Akashic records, and we're also being able to tap into different dimensions and frequencies. Because I feel like constantly we're always in different dimensions that are always overlapping us at continuous time frames. And going back to what you said about angels, demons, I think that they're all linking, they're all the same thing, and similar to spirit world. So I believe that we have different kind of orders. I think there's a different hierarchy. I think we have different dimensions, and the shamans speak about this, the lower world and the higher, you know, the lower and the higher world. So when they do the journey, you know, they're going between different states of consciousness and the dimension. So really, I feel there's a dimension where you've got the angelic realm. Then there's another dimension, I think, that we have the demonic realm, or negative entities. People call it different. And then I think, you know, some people believe in the gods, and being a white witch, being a witch, I definitely connect with my elders, my ancestors, and my deities. So when I'm calling on that, I'm going to a different dimension and calling on the energy of the gods. So yes, there are definitely different dimensions, and I think with the alien side, and I do believe in aliens without sounding like a bit of a nut here.
Well, so do I, so it's not the club.
If you'd asked me this, I'm well and truly in the club now, but if you asked me, do I believe in aliens 10 years ago, I would have said no, I would have laughed. I would have said, yeah, I believe in spirit, because it's something I've seen as a child, so it's always been with me. But if you'd asked me, do I believe in UFOs, you know, I'd laugh. Honestly, and I, without causing offence here, I used to believe, or the thing that would come to my mind was, you know, a middle-aged man living at home in his mum's basement. That's the kind of type of feeling 10 years ago. I kind of, you know, imagined people that believed in UFOs.
There are some like that.
But I was young. Yeah, you still get them, the fantasists that, yeah, that's, but it's what I believed in at the time, because I didn't know anything other than that. But now I realise that actually, I've been having UFO communication from a child, but at that time, I believed it to just be spirit. I didn't know difference. But as I've got older, I understand the difference and the beings have been around me. So, yeah, I do believe the same ideology of what you're thinking with the different dimensions.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. Now, when you speak to aliens, how do they communicate with you? Is it all just in the mind, I presume?
No.
You get
pictures
and things as well, or?
So that's interesting. I get different things for different times. So with the spirit side, with the mediumship, with the psychic side, that can range from telepathic communication. So I'll get telepathic feelings. So that's with, thoughts and feelings. Sometimes I'll get clairaudience, clairsentience, where I'll feel them, I'll sense them. With the UFOs, I've actually got footage of crafts outside my home, outside the fields. I've done a lot of paranormal investigations. I mean, it started off with the paranormal investigations where I'm trying to capture spirit phenomena. But then I captured up things that I'm like, hang on, this isn't spirit. This isn't an angel. This isn't a loved one. This isn't a guide. This is something very different, more than an orb. And then again through dream state as well. And this happened through various different things that happened in my life. So it didn't just happen one day. Let me stress that. I had this being that came to me in my dream state, and he communicated telepathically with me. I saw what he looked like. He looked very different from spirit. He looked very much kind of like, it's like an avatar. That's the best way I can describe it. Have you seen Avatar?
Yeah, sure.
And he had this kind of different colours on the side of his face, avatarish. And he was telling me to go to this location at this certain time, and I was like, what is this? This is strange. And he was saying, I'm with you, I've been around you, I'm not your guide, we've been with you since a young age, you'll see us again. And I woke up and I was like, whoa, that was an intense dream. But I was curious to the location of where I was told to go. So me being me, and quite spontaneous, I contacted a friend and I said to them, hey, I've had this really weird dream. And they're like, tell me something new. It's not, I'm always ringing people up and going, oh my God.
Well, hear my
but
dreams.
for them, it's not weird. Yeah. And I asked them to come to this location with me, and I was told to go at 11 o'clock, and at midnight I would be shown something that I needed to see. So this person's like, cool, okay, I'm up for it. So we went to this location. It was a churchyard, and this was in Hertfordshire, and this was about, I would say, 2.5 years ago, maybe a bit more than that. And if you research it, I think other people will see that people put the same thing out with what had happened. So basically we went there and it was midnight. At midnight there were these beautiful flashes that happened in the sky, this beautiful neon blue lights, and it wasn't thunder, but it lit the sky up like thunder. And I was like, oh my God. And there was between 11 and 12 flashes. And my friend was like, oh my God. They were like, this is insane. And it was something more. It wasn't just a storm. It wasn't a storm. It was a phenomena. And we saw these symbols light up in the sky, which I drew later on, which turned out to be linked with ancient geometry. To cut the story short, I was fascinated and I Googled, has anyone seen something similar? Because I'm thinking, obviously, other people must have seen this. And people in different locations around the country had put out on a forum, hey guys, don't know what's going on, but have you seen these like weird flashes of lights in the sky? And no one could pinpoint exactly what they were. They didn't know. They didn't think it was thunder. But other people coming forwards and also saying that they'd had some weird dreams or told to go to different locations and saw the flashes. So then at that point I knew, again, I'm communicating with a real being, that this is real telepathic communication. And at other times, we're driving back with my partner, we've documented this, we've got footage where, we've seen something that looks kind of like a plane at first, and then it gets bigger, and then it starts moving in a different direction, and it's not. And then it can go into almost like a star shape, and we're like, what the hell? What is this? And it's like following us, or it's making us follow it. So we start, following it, and then we end up in different locations in weird fields. And then it's morphing into a bigger craft. And we're filming it. Sometimes the footage will cut out, which is really frustrating. And other times, because we don't have a lot of the high-tech, technology, you can't see it as clearly, but you can see it's clearly not a plane. It's not a star. And then we've had like weird feelings, and I've had like downloads and they've told me different things. And again, with ancient geometry, which I've documented lots of different symbols, and things like that. And then I found that again with my healing ability, after having these interactions, whether this is through the dream state or over the years with the different locations of where I've been, I found that my ability has got stronger. I've always felt a bit different. It's like a different altitude. There was one location that we went to. Again, I documented this. If I can find the footage, I'll send it to you after the interview.
Yeah. Well, I'll put it on the page, the show page for it, and people can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was Hudson Airfield. It's meant to be an abandoned airfield that we got diverted to from seeing this kind of being in the sky. And they started to land in the field. And we're like, what the hell? This is crazy. And there were like 3 of them in a tandem, just landing, going back up in the sky and landing. And then we felt like there was a mist around us, like we were at a different altitude, like we were being lifted up. And I felt very dizzy and very spacey, like I could not breathe. And our phone equipment started to be interfered with. My battery started to get wiped. It was on a full battery. And at the point before it cut off, I was filming live, and this car came out of nowhere, and they pulled over, and he was asking us, what are you doing? Why are you filming? And we said, no, we're fine. He said, have you broken down? We said, no, we're fine. And my partner at the time could see there was a man in the back, and then there was another man in the outside seat, and he's like, Indigo, come on, get in the car, let's go. And he was getting quite aggressive, and he's like, you shouldn't be filming. You're not allowed to be filming. And he spoke very poshly, like he had military written all over him. He was dressed normally, but he was driving this, I think it was like a Jag. It was dark at the time. And my partner's like, come on, just get in the car. And I jumped into the car and the car drove off, but then they tagged us, and we went down a slip lane and we kind of waited for them to go by. My partner is quite clued up with things like that. And they basically were trying to tag us all the way home. We noticed our petrol tank had gone empty, and we'd filled it up beforehand.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it was insane, and we both felt really dizzy and sick. We got back home. My phone's completely wiped at this point. Went to bed, and then I woke up in the middle of the night, but it was like I was coming out of my body, and I was lifted up onto the ceiling, and I had this green light going through me, and it was like neon waves rippling through my body. It wasn't a pleasant feeling, but it wasn't like really painful, but it wasn't pleasant. And I was told to relax, and that I was having like a DNA upgrade, or on a cellular level, and not to panic, that they're helping me. Obviously I'm panicking because I'm like, what the hell? Like on my ceiling. It sounds crazy. And I'm thinking maybe this is just like an out-of-body experience. This is a weird dream. I don't know. But then when I woke up, it was like time had lapsed. I woke up and it's in the afternoon. My partner woke up at the same time, and we're like, we never sleep in that late. I told him about my dream, and he's like, that's really interesting, because he said that he felt like he'd been taken out of his body as well. We looked at our phones, and some of the footage had been wiped. And we're like, we didn't understand it, but then luckily we still had some left of that. And then I felt after the weeks after that encounter, my psychic ability seemed to kind of go through the roof. I mean, I'm not being accurate anyway, but I felt that the information I was bringing through, it just was like, it was just insane. It was just constantly on point. But then that's when I had the world events coming to me, where I was seeing major world events happening in dream state, and then I was putting that out there. And then when I was doing the healing work for people, again, they were saying that they were getting remarkable results. I've had people come who had been suffering with chronic arthritis, and they were on having to take kind of like morphine for the pain. Some of them had like crumbling bones. It was that bad. And after the healing, they were like they could walk properly. They were saying they didn't need to have the morphine. And over the months, they kept updating me and telling me about all the different changes that were happening in their life. So I put that down to, I feel it's the beings around me that have been either channeling through me, or with what they've been doing with me. It's somehow kind of amplified my ability or gift. Does this sound weird to you?
I have actually heard that before, not from you obviously, but I have heard that from other people about their abilities or their psychic abilities being uplifted. I've heard that before, so that is very strange. I don't know if you know Philip Kinsella.
I met them some time ago.
Well, he and his brother, his twin brother, they had a abduction scenario when they were children, and Philip thinks that that's what brought his or enhanced his psychic abilities. You know, so you should have a chat with him one day, because it's very interesting. Very nice fella.
They're lovely. I remember meeting them a couple of years back, I think. At, at Paranormal. They were doing a talk, and one of them, I think, they picked up on my energy, and then they came and spoke to me at the end of the event, and they said, "You're a psychic."
Yeah, that would have been Philip, probably, because I don't think Ronald's so much psychic, really, but Philip is.
I think it was Philip, because he came to me and he said, "You're psychic," and I'm like, "How do you know that?" Because obviously when I go to events, I try and play it down. Like, I don't like. Yeah. I like to go to places and people not to know who I am, if that makes sense. Just where I can just, relax and chill.
Just blend into the background and sort of enjoy it.
Yeah. But he's like, no. He's like, with my energy, he's like, "You're an interesting character," and I'm like, "Touche." And he was like, "Yeah, I can see some interesting things around you," and I was like, "Yeah, me too." So he totally saw that. And I think that it's like gaydar. I think that other psychics, witches, UFO contactees, you just know, like, you can sense it. The other person doesn't even need to tell you. Yeah. If you're in the room, you just know. You can tell his energy doesn't lie. So I do think that's a whole new debate in itself. It could be,
absolutely. And like I said to you earlier before the show, I think if you'll agree to it, we'll maybe come back in a few months and we'll have you, Sasha, and myself on the show. And like I said, I can sit back and let you and Sasha get on with it, because I think you'll have a fascinating talk that everyone will be enthralled with.
Yeah, definitely. No bars hold. So the word doesn't my dyslexia back to front. But yeah, I was just going to say quickly. I think it's an interesting topic about, are the aliens or the UFOs, or what people want to call it, are they attracted to the gifted ones, to the psychic ones, because of their ability? Or is it that, we are attracting them because of it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
there's probably a bit of both. There's probably people they do see as, I think it may be, a lot of it might be down to your actual, the person you are. If you're a good person and you may not have those abilities, perhaps they see that that can make a use, give you those abilities. Or if you're already a good person but do have the abilities, they want to enhance them, such as yourself. That's probably the case.
Definitely. I think over the years, as I said, I've had more and more encounters, and I think they definitely have been helping me. And I think, don't get me wrong, I work very hard at what I do, as much as it's in my bloodline, it's been passed down. I still have had to work on my craft. I've still had to practice and do meditation and study my craft and my tools. It hasn't just fallen into my lap. I've spent many hours, months, days, weeks, really honing my skills. But I do think, the more of the meditation, the work I've done, I've become more of an amplifier. Almost like I'm channeling, because I do the transfiguration. And I see my body almost like a crystal. Kind of like, I see myself, I kind of take myself out of my body, and I'm a vessel, and I allow spirit to channel or tune through me. And with my healing abilities, I allow them to work through me, and I just amplify, or they help amplify my ability to help others with that. And I think if you are coming from a good place, and you do keep a high vibration, I think you will have more energy stepping forwards to work with you.
There's a distinct possibility that you may well have been put on this. It might sound far-fetched, but, certain people are put on this planet to do your work that you're doing. I don't know how you feel about that. I'm not trying to make you into like Supergirl or anything, but
like a Messiah complex.
from that aspect, I'm pretty sure that could be the case.
I do think that. I think as I've got older, I've come to that realization. I think, as I always say to people, you know, I didn't set out to be a psychic medium. I didn't pick it. It chose me. So when I get people coming to me and they're like, oh my God, I want to be a psychic, I want to be a medium, I'm honest with them and I say to them, look, one, be careful what you wish for. Two, you know, you either are or you're not, okay? I know a lot of people may disagree with this, okay? And some people say everyone is psychic, and I do believe that we all have psychic ability. But others will have to work harder to develop that. I think the primal state of the brain, going back to sort of the caveman times, we all had that kind of, that survival, that intuition. But I think that it's not for everyone. It really isn't. No. And
I mean, a lot of it's been blocked off by the media anyway, hasn't it? You know, like television and the controlling forces in these, if you believe in the upper government and things like that.
Well, how can you not? Like, when people say about all the conspiracy nuts and things like that, I'm like, are you stupid? Like, how can you live in this day and age and not know that there is definitely, you know, there are higher forces that govern us with everything, from the spirit world to the physical to the human world, you know, the higher corporations, whether we call that, you know, Illuminati or secret corporations or things like that. It's definitely orchestrated. Absolutely. And there's definitely a lot of corruption going on, for sure. And at the moment, there's a lot of fear-based agenda working with this. And I think people on the esoteric sides, the witchcraft sides, they're understanding very much. And energy healers are knowing what's happening at the moment, because energy is real. It's real. Whether you believe in it or not, it does not matter. It's same as electricity, you know. You know, you can't necessarily see it, but you know if you put your finger in a plug hole, you're going to get electrocuted, right? It's science, it's a fact. It is. So, you know, you flip that light bulb on, the light's going to come on. You don't know how or what, but it's there. So, as I'm saying, with the forces, the agenda, it's very much playing out. And with the current thing with the coronavirus, it's just another thing. Same old thing, just marketed in a different way. If you think back a couple of years ago, maybe it was 5, 6, we had the Ebola.
Oh, yeah.
Ebola.
Yeah. And SARS, and before that, it was AIDS and everything like that, wasn't it?
AIDS, it's all packaged in a different thing, fear-based packaging. And I think, and I've said this in other interviews, again, a lot of people are like, oh, 2020 is going to be the golden year, it's going to be the year. Well, in a lot of ways, I think it is, but it's not how people are seeing it. I think a lot more people are waking up, a lot more spiritual awakenings. I think there's no coincidence around the world. We've had a lot of major worldwide things with the Australian forest fires. You know, we've got like 6 different earthquakes around the world. Like, come on, people, this is not just a coincidence. This is like major stuff happening, and I think it's a couple of different things. I think one, you know, humans have just absolutely abused the planet, you know, and it's fighting back now. It's people needing to wake up and realize, you know, we've got to change our ways, you know, we've got to start really looking after the planet. But also I think it's forcing people to have more spiritual awakenings through this trauma, through the destruction. It's making people start to realize actually about their spirituality and realizing, you know, the consequences, and thinking about life after death and things like that.
Not in a religious way either, is it? It's kind of an actual spiritual awakening rather than, you know, believing in a lot of different religions. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, maybe people find comfort in God or Buddha. You know, again, it comes in different names.
It's just a way of focusing
when I say about the spiritual awakening, I think that on the ritualistic point of view, with again, I hate to say the word Illuminati, things like that, because it sounds very Hollywood, but I think that the media very much is trying to keep humanity, and the people behind it who are fronting the media, the bigger corporations, the agenda, it's about enslaving mankind, and they understand when you start to get to a certain level, whether that's in the Freemasons, the Illuminati, different orders, they know about energy. So they work with the energy rituals. So now it's all come out, you know, about the whole pedophiles, the satanic, the blood sacrifices. if I spoke about this 6 years ago, people would think, oh my God, this is just Hollywood's fantasist. But now it's coming out to be true, and people are actually going, yeah, no, this actually goes on. So the reason why this is going on, really, it's all about energy. So these individuals who are into the satanic practices, they work and feed off fear base, and they feed off it by creating fear. So the more fear, the stronger they get, and it magnifies their rituals of what they're doing. So going back to what's going on a worldwide level, the best way, if the media can portray and put fear in people, they're creating a massive energy grid, but fear-based. So it's making the, shall we say, the darker side stronger, and it's dumbing down and making people lose touch with their power, their own ability, and making them weaker. So if we do not feed the fear, if we wake up and realise that this coronavirus is just another fear-based agenda to keep people in fear, and we're like, this is bullshit, this is bullshit. If we put out positivity and we focus on health, love, healing the planet, we can override that. If we look at the Australian fires, I don't know if you were part of this or saw this, but there were posts on a big collectiveness put out there from, witches to shamans to Christians, all saying, let's make it rain.
Yes,
so everyone was doing the prayer. Yeah, they're doing the prayer to make it rain, and within 24 hours after months of no rain, it started to rain. There's no coincidence that, a collectiveness, we all put that out there and it happened. So what I'm trying to say is that energy work, it's so powerful, what we think, what we fear, what we put out there. So if we start becoming aware of that, they lose their power of the ritualistic side of things.
I'll tell you what, I wish they'd all get together and stop it raining in the UK.
Then it's done. Let's put a post. I'll tell you what, David, when we get off of this, let's do an experiment, maybe some sigil magic, and we can put out there to make it sunny for the next couple of days and see what happens.
That'd be nice. It's raining every other day, isn't it? I mean, let's put it like this. I mean, on world events, I mean, we've had it quite lightly, really, but we just rain. But we've had a few floods and things, or people have. But there's nothing to what they've suffered in Australia, and obviously the Far East countries with the floods and earthquakes and God knows what else. It's even the California fires and everything that of recent times as well.
It's madness. Yeah. It's just like the whole planet's gone into absolute chaos. But as I said, the positive, more light workers are rising up, connecting, and I think more and more people are starting to realise we'll turn more to a spirituality base and starting to retake back their power, and realising that we have to work together as a collective consciousness to bring about positive change.
Yeah. Now, you foresaw a lot of these disasters, didn't you?
I did. Fortunately.
How far in advance did you see them? Was it sort of like a year, 2 years, or months?
It was about a year. It was about a year and a bit, I think, because it's time stamped. If you go back on my Facebook, and if anyone is interested after hearing the interview, they can find me on Indigo Phoniex. That's my profile.
I'll put all your links and everything on the Paranormal Dimensions page. Don't worry about that. Hopefully you'll get an influx of friend requests and stuff like that.
Hopefully not too many nutters.
No, I'll try to avoid those myself. There's a few of those about.
Yeah. So interestingly, with the fires, I saw the fire. I mean, actually, if I go way back, so when it first started, actually, where I first started putting out about precognitive things publicly, I put out about the Egyptian plane crash. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember that? I think it was about 4 years ago. Yeah. Roughly.
Was that the one? Is that the one that disappeared for a while?
No, it was that
was the Malaysia one, wasn't it? Yeah, that's right.
And it broke in half and then it crashed into the sea. Yeah. So originally, I again had this being that I mentioned to you originally, that I communicated telepathically with, came to me in dream state, and then they showed me a plane breaking in half, and I saw the Star of David because they work with a lot of symbols for me. And then I saw it going to the ocean, and I knew it would have a lot of British people on it. I saw a lot of bloodshed, so I knew there'd be a lot of death. And I saw an explosion on the back, so I knew there would be a bomb or an explosion. And then I was told that it wasn't an accident, but then it would be reported there'd be an accident. And I knew it to be linked with Egypt, and I knew it to be terrorism of some format. I woke up and I was like, whoa, like, that was insane. And for me, there's a big difference between my normal dream state and a precognitive. So a normal dream would be a bit vivid, a bit all over the place, whereas a precognitive dream state will be, I will feel pain, I will see colours magnified, and I'll see key detail, and I'll be left with that emotion of the fear, the upset, or the pain. So it's like a film that I see playing out in slow motion. So I was guided to write on Facebook to put out the vision. So I put that out there. I was a bit dubious because I didn't know the reaction I was going to get. And obviously it hadn't happened. So I put out exactly what I said to you about seeing this plane, a crash happening. I said I think it will be happening within 4 days. Because when I see visions normally at that state, it's normally will happen between 4 days to a week, 10 days maximum. But normally if I'm seeing it like that, it's happening very soon. So I put it out there, and you can understandably, mixed reactions. Mostly I had a lot of trolls, you know, anything from saying, you know, you're crazy, what is this madness, you've lost the plot, to other people saying, you know, you shouldn't be inciting fear. And I just kind of replied back saying, it's what I've seen, it's a vision, I guess time will tell. Anyway, within 2 days later, 2 days, so 48 hours later, it happened. And it happened exactly how I said it would happen. It was a British plane with going to Egypt, and it crashed. At first they put out there that they thought it was a tragic accident, and it had broken in half into the sea. Then about 3 days later it turned to, they felt there was some sort of explosion or fire. And then I think 2 days after that it went to, yeah, there was a terror attack. It was a explosion as I described it. And then that's when obviously the remarks changed to, oh my god, how do you know this? And it all completely changed to them people believing me and saying like, this is like phenomenal, how did you know this, how did you see that? But sadly that got me some unwanted attention. My Facebook, interestingly enough, got shut down.
Did it?
Yeah, it got shut down, and there's a lot of people that again can testify to this. They saw the prediction, they saw it all happen, and my Facebook 1 minute it was there, the next I couldn't sign on, and it said that my account had been suspended. So I tried to contact Facebook saying, well, why is it suspended? What have I done? They didn't answer back for a really long time. And I didn't get my account back for probably about 6 months.
Wow.
After that. It took a long time. Yeah. It's no coincidence. And it was wiped. So when I got my account back, a lot of my stuff had been wiped. But luckily I think some people had screenshotted some of the stuff. It kind of like freaked me out. So after that, I really kind of didn't put much stuff out after that. And then,
well, that does make you think there's people watching things that are going on then, doesn't it?
Well, interestingly you should say that, because after that, I had somebody that turned up at an event, a psychic event that I was doing. And, they came to kind of pose as like a client. I was doing platform. And then they asked me to read for them because I had to do table readings where I was going to different tables, and I knew this lady had a very different energy about her, and I knew she wasn't what she was posing to be. And then in front of all the people she was like, no, I want you to tell me what you're seeing. And I said, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, tell me. I was like, well, you're linked with some sort of government. And she's like, yeah, no, you're right. And then she pulled out her necklace in front of all the people on the table, and it was a Masonic necklace, Masons. And she's like, do you know what this is? I'm like, yeah, I know what this is. I was like, okay, this is interesting. What do you want me to continue? And she's like, yeah. So I did. And I gave, information, and the poor people at the table who were there normally were like, what is going on? This is madness. And she's like, can I speak to you outside? And I said, yeah, okay. I had a break coming up. So I went outside, and I was quite interested. I'm like, what's going on? And anyone who knows me, I'm open-minded, and I'm willing to talk to whoever. to a degree, you know, I'll listen, I'll see what's going on to assess. And she was very, very open and honest, and she gave me a card, and she's like, we're interested in you, would like to speak to you more. Have you heard about the Eastern Star? And at that point, I didn't know about the Eastern Star. You know, I was like, who's the Eastern Star? And she's like, it's an organization. It's linked with the Freemasons, but it's a sect for females. Oh. And she's like, you have very strong ability. I was like, okay, why do you want, I don't know. I still was like, where are you going with this? And she's like, we're interested in you. And she said, I've seen some of the stuff you put out on Facebook. And I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. And she said, have you been tested in remote viewing? And I'm like, yeah, I know about remote viewing. So to cut the story short, because this could go on a while, and I don't know how...
We got all the time we want.
She was like, basically, we're fascinated by you. She said, you're young, we've seen what you're putting out there, and we think you've got serious potential. You know, have you thought about joining a different organisation we could do with somebody like you? And I'm just like, okay, like, this is just bizarre. She's like, well, here's my card, think about it. I think we could do with you joining. And I was like, okay, I need more information. So she's like, well, contact me and we can go from there. So I was like, this is weird. And then at the time I had a friend who was working on the event with me as well, another medium, and he came out and he was like, what the hell? And I'm like, yeah, no, don't ask. And I showed him the card. He had a bit of a better understanding at this point, because at that point I'm a bit naive, didn't really understand all about this, shall we say. And he was like, that's a Masonic card. That's a Mason right there. And I'm like, oh, is it? He's like, yeah. He's like, what the hell? I'm like, well, I said they're interested, they want to talk to me. And
yeah, but even then you probably wouldn't. You know, saying someone's a Mason, do you know really much about the Masons? Unless you've actually studied what they're about. I mean, someone says to me they're a Mason, I don't really know. I don't really kind of understand what Masons mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, that could just mean anything, you know. I mean, I knew at that point, you know, it's an organisation. I mean, I think nowadays it is just a bit of a boys' club. Yeah. I mean, you have different sects, okay? So predominantly, the Freemasons, it's a boys' group. Well, not a boys' group. I don't mean to be patronising. It's a group that consists of male members.
It's like a social club type of thing, isn't it?
It's a social club, yeah. And to be honest, as I've said, you know, a lot of them do good. You know, the lower ones, shall we say, they do a lot of philanthropy. They help. They do a lot of charity. You know, it is what it is. That's it. I've been to Hertfordshire county clubs and fetes, and you've got stalls now. Join the Freemasons. So it is just like a social club for affluent members or to connect and do business. Yeah. But then obviously if you go up the ranks, there's
that's
a different
to act as a front for the rest of it, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely, when you go higher, and you've got to go pretty high, then you're getting more into the kind of ritualistic, esoteric, Kabbalistic sides of things, where you start to do more of the kind of witchcrafty. I don't even like to say witchcraft side, because obviously I don't want to implement and people think witches do this, because it's very different, but I guess more the satanic-y, ritualistic stuff, which can become quite
like
dark.
Black magic.
Yes, dark. There's some dark stuff going on there. There's also a female group, apparently, which is called the Eastern Star. So I don't know how long that's been going, if it's a new thing.
No, it's a new thing on me.
I've
not heard that. I might have to do a little bit of research into that after.
Yeah, so there's an Eastern Star group. So from what this person had told me, fundamentally, there's the Scottish Rites. That is well known. That's the predominant group, the Scottish Rites, Masons. Now, from what I understand with what this person had told me, they don't accept women being in the Masonry. They don't like it. But then there's a new group that has set up that are females. I was told that there's a divide now in the group, and it isn't what it used to be. That, as I said, a lot of it is more a boys' club. And then you've got the divide of the older generation, which is trying to make it stronger, to have a kind of a comeback, and wanting to recruit newer members that have psychic ability, that have healing ability, who do have esoteric understanding of the satanic and the witchcraft sides, because they're trying to rebuild it. and they're wanting to get their practices stronger again. But it's very underground, so obviously it's not very publicized. So from what I can understand, because I did contact this person afterwards because I was fascinated, I wanted to know more at this time. At the time, I didn't know all of this. This is what transpired after speaking with her and having conversations, and finding out a lot more. Because obviously when she marketed this to me, she obviously didn't say, you know, come on, sell your soul, join Satan.
Come over to the dark side.
She didn't market it like that. So it was more a soft approach of, you know, you're a phenomenal psychic, you know, you could do good. Have you thought about joining this group? I think it'd be very beneficial. It could open up doors for you. It could connect you. You know, it went from there. And then obviously through more kind of private conversations, it started to get a little bit more elaborate. And then it went into, would you be interested in being tested with the remote viewing side? Would you be interested in being tested in a unit? And then this person who came to me was linked, it turns out, more of the governmental sides of things. And I know, again, different debates here, but I can tell you 100% this unit does still exist to this day. There is still a unit inside a certain government place, government run, that does have psychic testing, that does have people, or they're training people to work with the psychic ability side. So that's moving more into sort of, I guess, you know, we're seeing a lot more videos on YouTube, the whole super soldier program, and I was a super soldier and all this kind of stuff. Let me make this clear. It does exist, and it is true. It is true. There is a unit that does dedicate psychic and remote viewing, and they still use practice to this day. However, I do think there's been a lot of videos through certain people that are I can't say the word, blowing it up and making it into some sort of Hollywood sci-fi.
Right.
You know, and I hate the word super soldier program. I mean, you know, it's what it's called, but I think it's been massively misinterpreted and a lot has been blown out. So I was tested in that, and I did pass the tests. I did have to sign, you know, what people say is true. I had to sign certain things, or things that I couldn't speak about. And I went so far in relation to that. But there were other things that I started to see that I didn't resonate, didn't agree with me. And luckily for me, I wasn't in too deep that I couldn't, where my choice was taken away from me, where I couldn't, you know, get out of that. However, that still did have implications for me. Let me make that clear. You know, it's not something you just walk away from, which led to some difficult times for me. But being quite a strong individual, I wasn't going to be scared or pushed into something that I didn't want to do. So.
Yeah, I think it was probably given that title Super Soldier to make it sound Hollywoody, but, you know, so that you wouldn't pay too much attention to it, maybe, you know. You see what, I mean? Kind of give something a childish name.
Well, I guess it is kind of like a super soldier in a way. It originates from the fact that obviously, whether you want to call, you know, we're at spiritual warfare, you know, we are, okay? Whether people like it or not, we are at some sort of spiritual warfares. I think, as I said, there's different units inside the government, there's different things, agendas going on. So obviously, you know, you've got your normal military, you've got your normal army bases. I've touched upon this a little bit, but do you remember, have you seen this film, Men Stare at Goats?
Yes.
It was quite a tongue-in-cheek, funny film.
Yeah,
so,
George Clooney
they touch, Now, a lot of that has been massively, like, sensationalized and things like that, but there are elements of truth there. So the concept is, you know, they have taken normal people, or shall we say, military people training that they felt that might have some ability, and they have tested them or have worked with them to help heighten their psychic abilities. So the whole super soldier thing is trying to take a normal human being, shall we say, and amplifying their human ability to make them into this kind of the super, do you know what I mean? Like a super strength soldier.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense, yeah. In fact, I don't know if you know Solaris Blue Raven, but I believe she was inducted into that program too in America. I think you ought to get together with her too. In fact, she's got a radio show. I'll get you on her show.
That would be interesting. Again, as I said, it's been interesting. I mean, going back to, you asked me about police cases and murders and things like this. Again, this is quite documented, so I'll speak about this. There was,
Is it something very touchy for you?
No, I'm just trying to think legally where it might lead.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, don't drop us both in it. I'll chop it out.
I think let me hold back on that. I will message you maybe that, and we'll see if we can maybe on another program discuss that, depending on the.
If you come back on that next show, we'll do in a couple of few months time. I'll get Sasha on with you, and perhaps we can tackle it there. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I've got a question for you about that. You being a white witch, have you had any sort of have you had any sort of conflicts with a black witch? If you see what I mean. Have you ever come up against someone who's using their powers against you?
Okay, yes, all the time. So, Okay, let me just clear this up. So I market myself as a white witch because a lot of people, they lack the understanding. Even to this day and age, when it comes to witches, it puts fear in people because of, again, media ignorance and things like that. So for me, I have to say white witch to make it quite clear, I'm of good, I work with the good. However, when you come to magic, when you come to doing any forms of manipulation, it's not really about white anymore. It's white, grey and black. Do you know what I mean? Because the essence is, if you start to manipulate anything, then it's not good or bad as such. I mean, obviously it comes down to the intention of what you put out there. So obviously, I can do harm, I can do good, and I choose to work with light. I choose to do good things. But I don't really think there's anything. I don't really think white witches exist as such. Does that make sense? I have to say white witch to make it clear. I work with the light. But when you start working with any form of manipulation, any forms of spell, whether that's good or bad, because let's say, for example, somebody's really ill, okay, and I do a spell to help heal them, then I'm messing with free will, and then I'm putting my own, either somebody else's selfish desire to keep that person alive or well. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm taking away free will now. So when you start manipulating energy and you start dabbling with this, it's. Do you understand?
Yeah, I think I see what you mean. Yeah, I do see what you mean. Yeah, it's difficult to sort of put it into words, isn't it? But
it's hard to explain.
It's basically the same magic, but you can sort of use it with your left hand or your right hand. Is that kind of where you go?
Yeah, yeah. So, I've come up against psychic attacks from other psychics, from mediums, from jealousy. Some of them know that they're attacking me, and I think others don't, because they don't realise that the power is, if you send hate to somebody, if you hate a person, you keep sending hate, you're attacking them, and psychically you can hurt them, and people don't realise that. And then I've also had other kind of witches, shall we say, that have no morals and no scrutiny, that have then tried to attack me as well, and have sent things to try and, topple me or to cause me problems and things like that. It happens a lot, and especially in this industry. So I'm always having to constantly protect myself, guard myself, do rituals. It is a bit of a minefield. But for me, I don't fear anything. I'm confident and strong in my ability, and know that I come from a strong ancestral background. I have my guides. And for me, it's all about what you believe in. So if you believe that someone can hurt you, then they can hurt you.
Yeah, sure.
I don't believe that anyone can hurt me. I honestly don't. And that might sound really egotistical. It's not about ego. I just know that I cannot be hurt. I just have confidence in my ability. I mean, saying that, I'm not saying that my life has been easy and it cannot be problematic and troublesome at times, but I know how to deal with it. And I know when there's been something sent my way, and I know how to deal with it and what to do with that. So
yeah, it's very interesting. I know it's very difficult to describe it, But I mean, anyone's seen pictures of Indigo, you're probably the quintessential vision of what you think of what which would look like. if that's,
really?
That's,
Really?
you know what I mean? I mean, imagine you think of like a witch normally. They've got like a big crooked nose, and a broomstick and all that. And you are the sort of opposite of that.
She's got a good plastic surgeon.
But
no, I think I'm lucky. I think I've got good genetics, and I don't know. I mean, I think that's the beauty of witchcraft, and I think that's why so many people are being more drawn to it. I think you have that reign, you have that freedom to be whatever the hell you want to be. Like, it doesn't matter your look, your race, you can wear and be and do whatever you want to be, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Exactly.
So,
I mean,
beauty
is more than skin deep, isn't it? It goes, it's right down into you. You can be ugly and be the most beautiful person in the world. You know, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I see that quite a lot, actually. Again, if you look at media and some of these celebrities, I mean, again, being psychic, I can see a lot of stuff, and it's like, if you could see what I could see energetically, oh my God, you'd rather date a demon than some of them. The energy is so toxic.
Do you see, I mention reptilians quite often. You hear that, the old David Icke yarn being about reptilians. Now, I think that they actually, I mean, once upon a time, I used to think it was all ridiculous, but I've actually heard so many people that have actually seen reptilians. What's your take on that? Reptilians,
that's an interesting one. Okay, so to be honest,
because apparently they're the ones behind the fear factor that everyone's, and they're the controlling factor in the background.
I mean, you get good and bad in all, right? Like all different races and humans. So, I mean, I know with the UFO side, I mean, I connect very much with the blue beams, the Cyrus energy. Again, I mean, I think it's the Archons. Again, I don't have a big knowledge. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a UFO expert because I'm not by any means. All I can say is about my accounts and what's happened to me and trying to understand that. But I have encountered, shall we say, negative beings that I do believe not to be spirit, that I think are more, shall we say, reptilian. And I do feel that I have seen Archons or the Archon energy. I know people talk a lot about the Greys and things like that. Again, I really don't know very much about them. But I do think they do exist, and I do think they are aiding. Again, the same with, you've got angels, you've got your guides that are helping with the good things. Of course, you've got the other entities and things like that orchestrating and aiding the bad. You can't have one thing without the other. It goes hand in hand. And I think there are more and more accounts and sightings now as well of people coming forwards talking about this as well. And I think you can't dismiss it now, because the types of people that are coming forward, they're not just fantasists. It's not just, you can't keep pinning it off as mental health. These are people that are coming from very reputable backgrounds that, really have no reason to be lying about this and didn't start to be known or want to be known. And if anything, coming out and talking about this is causing kind of threat to their day-to-day lives. It could ruin their actual careers. So for me, I do think they do exist. I am a fan of David Icke. Some of his stuff has got a little bit kind of like, whoa. But as you can see, a lot of his stuff has been correct.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got to fully agree with that. I mean, a few years ago, I mentioned it a few times. I when you saw him on the Terry Wogan show, you think, oh, this bloke's a bit off his rocket, but
I remember that.
But in actual fact, I mean, I actually saw him in London. I mentioned it on another show. I saw him in London for the first time, apart from seeing him on TV and things a few times. But he did like a 12-hour stint, and for about 10.5 hours of that, he was talking, and by the end of that day, I was actually blown away. I thought this man's a genius, really. You couldn't really see everything that you can't agree with everything that he says, but he does. I mean, the important thing is he does make you think about all these things, and you can then go away and look it up and believe it or not. But it does make you go away and read about it, and that's the important thing.
100%, and I think. If you look back as well, I mean, look, he named Jimmy Savile. all those years ago. He named other prolific things. He said things about world events, and they're all happening now. Again, you could say, oh, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe it's a guess. I get that all the time with trolls.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's a guess. But, how many things, I don't believe in coincidences. I really don't. But I do think he definitely has had a major spiritual awakening.
Oh, he did, definitely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I do think he's channeling. I do think he is channeling actual information. And now, I don't think he markets himself as a psychic, but I actually do think he actually has psychic ability, whether he realises it or not. I do think some of the information, and he makes that, he's very clear about it. He said some of it he's learned, it's been, through other people that have given him the information. Yeah. But other things, I do think he's channeling without realising. Yeah. I don't think he always fully knows where he's getting it from.
No, I
think
he said that himself, actually. He doesn't know where he gets it from, because the way he's churning out books, sort of like 800 page books every year, it's quite a lot to be doing, as well as doing all the talks and the touring and everything else,
And the thing I love about him, he doesn't fluff it up. There's a lot of people on the circuits, again, like shun away from the UFO talks and things like that. You'll get a lot of these speakers, and it's a lot of noise and not very much information, or it's just recycled stuff. That's out in books. That's, they've obviously, it sounds like they've literally been sitting watching Gaia or downloading the TV. Yeah. But they're not actually saying anything that we don't know. They're not giving any credible, real key facts. Whereas the thing I like about David Icke, he's not afraid to put his neck on the line, and what I'm known for doing, and be made to be, ridiculed and saying stuff that actually hasn't been put out in the public forum yet, where people are like, oh man, you've lost the plot. And he's like, no, this is going to happen, or this is the agenda. And then you find 6 months later, it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, his last book was about 9/11. It was quite an explosive book, actually, or it should have been, but it seems like the media kind of tried to ignore it, as if it would sort of not take any notice of it and it'll go away. You've heard of the book, have you? It's called The Trigger. And when
I've seen it, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, before it came out, David Icke said, I don't know what it's going to cause, but because he names people and what happened and everything like that, whether it's all absolutely spot on truth, I don't know. But the fact that he's actually naming people being of responsibility, but it just seems to be ignored, as if they don't want attention being drawn to it, because if attention gets drawn to it, it goes to court, and and then everything's got to come out then in court, isn't it?
Well, that's the thing I think we were speaking about off air as well. Again, when we're talking about trials and things like that, they're the first to jump on the bandwagon and poke, fun and be like, well, that's predictable, or that's easy, or tell us something that we don't know. And then when, you come forwards and you start giving names, evidence and things that do happen, they all go quiet suddenly. It's silence. Nobody wants to acknowledge this. And I think, again, it goes back to the whole fear-based agenda, distraction techniques. I always ask myself, let's say, for example, with the royal family, there's been a lot of scandal recently with with the old royals.
Well, there always has been, to be honest.
But a lot recently with the old Epstein situation, and then with Prince Harry. But I always say to myself, when these things happen, there's always another major thing that happens that then takes your attention from it. We've had all that and the coronavirus.
Yeah,
so then I'm like,
right.
Okay, I'm like, what's going on here? What are they trying to distract us from? Let's get us all into fear. Let's all focus on fear rather than focusing on rising up, taking our power back. Same with David Icke.
So think about the coronavirus. I mean, what about all the what was going on in Hong Kong? All those streets are clear now because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, but interesting enough, I don't know if you've seen this, but now suddenly a pharmaceutical company has come out with saying they've got a vaccination suddenly now for the old coronavirus, and how everyone should start having it. So no surprise there that suddenly the coronavirus hits, and now there's suddenly a vaccine for it.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got the cure, but not only that, it was patented. Same with the Ebola. Interesting enough. And I think there was a bottle of Detox or something that's been put on Facebook recently, where you can see on the back saying to aid or warn off the coronavirus.
Right.
And this was
that's right.
Yeah, before the whole coronavirus was created. So madness, anyone who understands these things can read between the lines here. So going back to the David Icke thing and about, again, no one wanting to acknowledge the book, it's about, make someone look like a crank, try and discredit them, make them out to be a bit of a nut bar. And then obviously when the information they put out there, try and like divert people's attention so they don't read it, they don't focus.
Yeah, just ignore it. Don't get it. Yeah, that's right. That's basically what they seem to have done. Yeah. I'll tell you what, we're kind of running out of time now. I mean, I've got a few questions that I've got off of your page that I think people were, because you put a thing out there, but have you got any questions? So maybe we ought to ask a few of those if you've got time before we pack up, yeah? But we're definitely going to do this again anyway, if you're up for it. But anyway, there's a question here from Nadia Khan Barnes, and she says, I think it's a she, yeah, it must be. I've always wondered when I've gone for readings, if the psychic medium sees something really bad, would she tell me? It's a subject me and my friends have discussed many times. Would you say anything?
Yes, I would. Okay, but that's me. So let me elaborate here. So, again, I'm known for being very different, and I think because I am quite outspoken, and I think I'm known because I do give key information. Compared to a lot of other psychics out there, they will keep very wishy-washy, they'll keep very basic, whereas I will give a full-on information, I'll give timestamps, I'll give future predictions, but within reason. So I do not like to incite fear. So I've had this a couple of times. I've had a client come to me. So, for example, I've seen that they're unwell, and they might realise this. So, again, within reason, I'm not going to sit there and terrify the client, because that's not what I'm here to do. I'm there to heal. So I will, for example, if I know that it's something serious and it can be avoided, I will tell the person, I'll say to them, in a loving way, I'll say, look, you know, kind of picking up on this. So, and they'd be like, yep, I'm not feeling great. I'm getting some kind of, so I'll say, you know, I'm picking up, say, on blood pressure or feeling a bit lightheaded, and they might be, yep, this is happening. And I've had this with a client before some time ago, and I said to them, look, it's nothing to be really worried about, but I just want you to go and see a doctor. Everything will be okay. It's going to be challenging, but I want you need to go to the hospital. You need to see a doctor. There's going to be some tests coming up and there'll be some surgery, but everything will be fine. But promise me you're going to go. And they're like, yes, we trust you, Indigo. They're a bit worried, of course, but I spent time with them. I said, look, it's nothing to worry about, but do this. To cut the story short, they went. And the doctor referred them to the hospital, and they ended up getting life-saving treatment. So, in that regards, through that information, it was able to be prevented, because if they hadn't have gone, and if it hadn't been detected at an early stage, that could have ended up in a very different place, and that person might not be here to this day. So, in that case, that was prevented. If I do see death, and I have seen this at some point, I have, sadly, and I know that it cannot be prevented, that, you know, it's an illness and there's nothing that can be done, I'm not going to incite fear into that person. I'm not going to tell them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be there and work with that person, because I know that down the line it will come out, and then at that point they're going to need me more to help them through this, to help them either come to terms with the situation, to work with them with energy healing, to help do healing, or to help them strengthen their belief system with the spirit world, to help them for their next journey. Right. But saying that,
because they'll come out the other side, won't they? So it's
exactly, because this is just a vessel. Like, this isn't us. We get too caught up on the body and this lifetime, but there's so much more than just this life. This is just a short snippet. You know, there's so much more that goes on in the afterlife. And again, with a lot of work that I do with the paranormal investigations, the seances, I always like to keep giving evidence and proof. And this is why I put the predictions out, to keep evidencing that there is more to life than this world, that there is spirit, that there is, you know, this isn't just it. But saying that, you know, if somebody's coming to me for a reading, it's not going to be all doom and gloom. But I'm known for my honesty and integrity, and I think too many readers sugarcoat things up, or they don't have the balls to tell the person the truth. But I will say from the start, you know, 9 times out of 10, somebody's coming to me because they know my reputation. They know they're going to get a very honest reading. They know it's going to be in depth, and I'm going to tell them what they need to know, what spirit needs to tell them. I will always say to that person out of respect, I'll say, look, you know, do you want me to be truthful? Like, how much do you want to know? And before you ask a question, think about, do you want to know the answer? You know, and they'll say, yeah, you know, we know you, Indigo. Of course we want to know the truth. But I have a responsibility as well of what I do and how I give that information. So I'm not going to be sitting there telling somebody, you know, catastrophic news. That's not how I work. I'm very careful of what I give. I make sure that I'm 100% right in that. So I know a lot of people think, oh my God, you know, what happens if the psychic's going to tell me that I'm going to die? Psychics generally, an ethical psychic isn't going to tell you that you're going to die. As I said, we'll be more diplomatic and say, look, you know, maybe you need to see a doctor, maybe you can get some treatment, something like that. But I personally have never sat in a reading and said to someone, you're going to die, or something like this. I generally will help prevent things. If I can see a car accident or something like that, I'll say to that person, oh, you know, what are you doing? Maybe stay in tonight, or, do you know what I mean? There's different ways around that.
Would that actually prevent the accident? If you foresee something, and you tell them not to do it, but does it actually prevent it, or does something else happen?
Well, again, interesting you say that. Now, some of my clientele are a nightmare, okay? When it comes to, I tell them not to do something and they do it anyway. They do it anyway, which is frustrating. And luckily it's more kind of minor stuff. And this is where, again, things can go a bit wrong with readings, because they'll say, well, you told me this and this hasn't happened. And I'm like, well, did you do what I told you to do, or did you not do? And they're like, well, no, I didn't. I'm like, well, you changed the outcome, you changed the course. Yeah. So with everything, I always will let people know, you have freedom. You know, I believe that you can change your fate. I happen to be tuning in to events or different scenarios at different time frames, at different dimensions, because I believe that we're living in alternate different dimensions simultaneously at different times. So I'm in this state now, but I believe there's another version of me in another dimension living a different life.
That's
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've been down that road before as well. Yep. There's another me sitting at another desk somewhere
on a beach drinking cocktails.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
So yeah, and I think again, you know, with like guides as well, I think spirit guides are just the alternate version of yourself. And this is where you're getting the different information, but that's maybe a different show. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I think I will tune into different events that could be happening. And I'll say to the client, look, I'm getting this feeling and I'm seeing this. So maybe avoid this. Now, it's up to that client what they do, whether they choose to go, oh, okay, thanks. So maybe because I've made them aware of it, they might drive a bit more carefully, or they might go and get their car fixed. So that prevents that incident at that point. So I can prevent that. I think if I'm seeing that in a reading, Spirit is wanting me to see that to help them. If I don't see it, then obviously I'm not meant to be seeing it. Or if that client chooses not to listen and then it happens, then it's the free will, it's their fate. I know that sometimes people think, oh, if you mess with something, then it changes something and then something else can happen. Now, I've had that happen, but not with a client. This was when I was much younger and I did sigil magic, and I tried to manipulate weather, and it was kind of raining, it was horrible, and I decided to do a sigil for sun, and I was in Mexico at the time. Anyway, you could call this a coincidence. We managed to stop the storm, and we got sun, because it was kind of like the tropical rain season, and then about a week later, there was a bit of a kind of a minor kind of like tsunami thing. Not that sounds strong, but there was a major storm that hit somewhere else. So then that kind of made me more aware in my younger days. Hang on, there's always a reaction. You know, it's a consequence and reaction. So by making the rain go somewhere else and having the sun, then somewhere else, you know, another storm hit. So there's always a reaction there, if that makes sense.
The butterfly effect, the ripple,
Yeah, but I think that's going more into like that Destination film? What is it? The Final Destination. Yeah. Where you're kind of like out beating the Grim Reaper and things like that. Luckily, with what I've seen with clients generally, if I forewarn stuff, I've managed to prevent things. And they've had no backlash, there's been no bad things that have happened from that. So yeah, I hope that answers largely your question.
That was a very long and detailed answer. But do you want to take one or two more? We've got.
Yeah, if we've got time.
Yeah, sure. As long as you've got time, we've got time. We got one from Sandra Pecci. She says, "Do you feel we know things are going to happen, or do we make them happen by believing we know they're going to happen?" I presume that's it.
That's a really good question. And yes and yes. So I think
that's kind of the same thing as you were just talking about, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah, I think again it goes back to law of attraction. I said about the positive mindset, because I think you can hear people talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. I think if you think about something enough over and over and you really believe it, I think you can make it happen. You can manifest it. You can materialize this. Because going back to the different alternative states and quantum physics and law of attraction, which is now proven to be true, I think we can manifest things into our existence. So again, you could say again with psychics, well, maybe they're just tapping into energy that's already happened, the Akashic records. It's a good question, and I think no one really has the exact answer. But I do think, yes, I do think we can know about things before they happen, because as a psychic, that's how I work. I can pick up things. Now the question should be, how do I know this? Am I tuning it in? Is it a past memory that I'm remembering? Am I tuning into the Akashic records? Is it spirit that's telling me, or am I manifesting this? But I think they're two different things slightly. They seem the same. Manifestation is a little bit different to already having a feeling and knowing something, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's the end of it, of course.
Yeah.
We've got another couple. How do you know when someone is cold reading you? I'm not quite sure what that means, actually. What does that mean?
Sorry, I'm coughing here. Just have some water. Cold reading. Okay, so cold reading. And that was by
Shansel Hussein.
So cold reading is charlatans' tactics. It's a psychology technique employed by charlatans that are wanting you to believe that they're mediums or psychic or tuning in when they're not. So what they're doing is they can use either Barnum statements or they can use cold reading. So Barnum statements is, for example, they will ask you a question that there can only be one answer to. So they'll be like, I pick up on your mum, right? So everyone's got a mum. So you're going to go, yeah. Then they'll watch your reaction, okay? And then they'll be like, oh, is your mum in the spirit world? So then the person's either going to go yes or no. So if they go yes, oh yes, my mum's in spirit world, they're going to go, oh yes, I thought that. If they say no, they're going to go, oh yes, I thought that. Do you know what I mean? They're going to make that fit. Cold reading, they will ask a lot of questions. A lot. So there's a difference between a psychic saying, okay, can you just validate this? Can you speak to me because we'll work through voice vibration, to asking like key details, because a genuine psychic should tell you information, not the other way around. Also a cold reader, they'll look at what you're wearing. So for example, some readers online, you can really tell the difference. If a psychic says, oh, I can't read for you if you're not in front of me, they're cold reading. I read for people all around the world. I do, and missing cases, and this is how psychics can locate bodies. They work with a photo, an item. They don't need to be there. Whereas a psychic that's cold reading, they have to have you in front of them, because cold reading is they're looking at you. They're looking at your age. So, somebody from a certain age group, they're going to have, a father or mother in spirit. If you're in your 60s, it's a fair possibility your parents have passed on. You're going to probably be married, you're going to have kids. They're going to look at wedding rings on the fingers. People dress a certain way. If you're good with psychology, you can pick up kind of what they do, if they're middle class, things like that. And again, if you are of a certain way, you can string sentences together to make yourself sound kind of like psychic. And by saying, I'm picking up on I've got spirit here, picking up on a mother here, I pick up you've got children. I really hate people that do this. For me, it angers me. And I do see this happening a lot, and it takes a lot for me to bite my lip. I've seen this on platform. I've seen some people, again, fishing for a lot of information and sizing a person. And also, known so-called TV psychics doing similar things.
I suppose if they're in front of an audience, they're actually looking for reactions to what they're saying, aren't they? And they can then focus on that person.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a difference. I mean, when you're doing platform mediumship anyway, a psychic will be looking at you. Even a general psychic, we're tuning into the person's energy. So we will be looking at that person. But as I said, you know, I like to give good evidence, and a decent medium will give you evidential stuff. They will tell you stuff that you couldn't have possibly guessed, and future things as well. Whereas somebody cold reading, they're going to tell you predictable stuff, and anyone who's kind of clued on or can see this, they're going to see there's a lot of questions being asked, and they're just telling you information that you already know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. Well, I hope
I'm sure you've seen it.
I hope that answers the question for who was that? That was that was Shansel Hussein. I think I read that name out, didn't I? Yeah, that was a question. All right, well, just one more question. I think now we'd be all night, wouldn't we? Right. I think this one might be a long answer as well. It says, when someone is being caught out, when someone is being a right liar to your face and they have no idea that you're psychic, how do you deal with that?
I get that all the time, especially with clients when they come and see me and then they're swearing blue. They've not done something I've told them not to do.
Oh, sorry, honestly, that was Kerry Small. I forgot to read the name out. So, Kerry, if this is your answer.
It's difficult. It depends on who you are. I mean, for me, I'm known as being very straight to the point, so I'll call people out on it. I will sometimes make it as a joke. I'll make it into humour. So it depends on the situation, the person. I've been known in the past when somebody is telling me, a lot of lies and really testing my patience. I'll freak them out and I'll pull up some psychic information. And they'll be like, oh my God, how do you know that? I'll be like, well, I'm psychic. And they're like, what? I'm like, well, I'm psychic, right? And I also know that you're not telling me exactly the truth. I'll give them a wink and smile and I'll make it sound funny. And then they'll either, it's funny to watch the colour like drain out of their face or them freak out or go a bit quiet. Or, sometimes I'll just let them carry on with it. I'll let them tell their yarn and I'll know what I know inside and I'll just keep it to myself.
Yes.
It just depends on because some people don't like a lot of conflict or confrontation. Yeah. Sometimes it's funny to see how far somebody wants to go with something, and then down the line, you let them know that you've known. That
can be quite entertaining for you, I should think.
It can be, like, if you turn it on them and you kind of see the humour in it, rather than getting angry and upset, you just see the comical side in it, and you just see him being a bit of a plonker, really, and stuff. Or you could just be honest and straight to the point and call them out on their bullshit and say, look, stop bullshitting.
Yeah. Which I think you're probably more inclined to do that anyway, from what I've seen.
Doesn't win you many friends, though.
No. I've been there. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But anyway, I don't know, Indigo. I mean, this has been brilliant, this show. I do hope you'll come back again, like we mentioned before. I think we'll just have we'll just end up on a little mention about trolls before we shut. Yeah, I think when you start doing stuff like this, I mean, I'm getting a little bit of it myself. You do tend to attract a few trolls that think, they want to be clever, and I don't know if it's some sort of a jealousy sets into them or something. I can see where people can be jealous of you because, like I said before, you're the sort of quintessential white witch that everyone would actually think is what a white witch should look like, and I can see where jealousy would come in from like other women and stuff like that. But and I can see where if you were bullied at school, that's probably where it all started from. But I think we ought to say a little bit of word out there that trolls, don't be silly, because we're all in this together and we're all trying to get to the truth, and we're not trying to outdo each other or be clever. And I was told I've got a big ego, and I mean, if anyone actually knows me, you couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, I'm surprised this show's still going. I thought we had to pack up after 3 shows, but there you go.
I think the good thing about trolls are, and again, I always try, from a negative situation, I always try and see the positive or the lesson in it. And I think I've learned, I like trolls. I love trolls, actually, because the thing about, as frustrating as they can be at times, I take a step back and I can laugh, because I sometimes see, really, they're crying out for attention or help, or they've got some kind of problem and they're needing help, right? So I'll try and not give an olive branch, but sometimes the trolls, they're just absolutely just self-sabotaging, and they just don't want the help, and there's only so much to do, you know? But I think that the good thing about trolls are, first of all, if you're getting trolls and haters, you know you've made it, right? You know that you're doing something right. Because when you get trolls and haters, you know that you're doing well in something. Because because you know what, you're getting attention, or what you're doing is resonating. And when you get haters and trolls, it's validation that actually, you know what, you're going places, you're doing well. So for me, you know, they say this in show business or something, you know, you've not made it until you've got a few stalkers. And when you've got a few stalkers and haters, you know you're doing well. And secondly, people get to know more about you. Like, they are your best advertisement, right? Because with their hate and their crap and their spreading, people that might not have known you, they're like, hang on, who is this David Young? Who is this Indigo Phoniex? And then these individuals will then come and have a look. And even though they're spewing out hate and this and that, other people are not stupid. So they'll read and watch this. And most likely, these individuals make themselves look stupid in the end. They out themselves. And then you find out that you get new followers or people connecting because they found you through this troll or them spreading out hate and things like that. So I always find it works in your advantage down the line.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually. It's, but anyway, I suppose we ought to not upset the trolls too much, but... They're
going to be turning into little troll caves, aren't they?
But anyway, we'll just sit back and let them get on with it, you know. Anyway, Indigo, it's been a great pleasure having you on, and I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something out of it.
I have. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
I hope you will come back and do that show. We'll get Sasha on as well. And as I said, I'll just sit back and let you two grab it on. And but no, I'll have to have a few words, I suppose, here and there. But yeah, we'll have to do it in a few months' time. We'll sort out a date, and we'll all come back on again if that's all right with you. And
yeah, if you're happy to be back.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you've got a lot more things that you can cover that we've not really had time to sort of even approach, really, here today.
Let me find out my legal stance. My legal stancing, and then I'll come back on that one.
Right. Anyway, on that note, Indigo, thank you very much for coming on. I'll tell you what, just before we do pack up, have you got any sort of communications, any websites or things you'd like to mention on the show before we pack up? Or anyone, if anyone wants to get in touch with you? I will put all those links on the Paranormal Dimensions page anyway. But,
yeah, I mean, as I said, you know, you can find me. I've got two pages. So there's my Indigo Phoniex International, which is where you can book me through Facebook for one-to-one readings, and have my information there. Then there's my website, which is www.psychicamazon at google.net. But again, we'll put the link there, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, what is it? And then there's my private profile, which is just Indigo Phoniex, which people can connect with me on that. But no cranks and no trolls.
No, we don't allow that. I try to limit those as much as I possibly can. But no doubt there'll be a few floating around anyway after this. But, anyway, thanks a lot, Indigo, again, and good night to you, and thanks for joining us. It's been a great pleasure.
You too, David. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Anyway, you've been listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. This is Paranormal Dimensions. I'm David Young. Good night, everybody, and thanks for listening. And tune in again next week. Thank you. Bye.
Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.